Why don't we read? Why don't we start in Second Thessalonians? Let people queue up here, and then you guys can ask me questions. But I kind of want to start off with you're probably wondering what the heck the antichrist and Trump Derangement Syndrome has to do with anything. This has to do with something I've been thinking about with the mentality of people the last, I don't know, 7 years. I'd say this is probably like a 7 year thing. Like ever since the Revelation 12 sign happened, you've noticed that there's been this division between people. And I know we hate to use the left and right, but honestly, it really seems like that's kind of the division is people who used to be on the left are now on the right. And people, and the more extremists are being moved to the left. So maybe it is an appropriate analogy to divide people between left and right. But I've been trying to wrestle with correlating the timeline with the signs happening, where we are in the events, with the seals and the end time events and what's happening and people's attitudes. And I have a lot of questions because there's things written about in the book of Revelation that we're, to expect, and trying to match these up with reality. It's kind of lead me down this path where in Second Thessalonians, this has been in my brain like a worm that's just been like trying to get my attention. Terrible analogy. You know what I mean, though? It's just like it's in there wiggling. Like, go back to this, go back to this. So let's read this and maybe talk about it. So this is Second Thessalonians 2. This is where it talks about the man of sin, the son of perdition. It says, "Now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, we ask you not to be soon shaken in mind or troubled, either by spirit or by word or by letter, as if from us, as though the day of Christ had come. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." So a couple of things that have got my attention is that there's a falling away. This is the apostasy. Some believe that this is indicative of the rapture, right? To where this is what is the capturing away. Because the word rapture is not written anywhere in the Bible. But this falling away, this apostasy, is kind of an image of that rapturing, that capturing away. And I believe the Latin is where we get the rapturo for this. But I wonder if the falling away isn't more of a division between right and wrong, right? The narrative of the end time events goes like this, right? There's going to be a man who's going to declare himself God, and this isn't what I believe, but this is the end time narrative. There's going to be a man who declares himself God. He's going to go into a temple. He's going to sit down and declare that he's God. That's how people interpret this verse. And they also say that, he's the little horn from Daniel, and he's the beast who's going to force a mark on everybody so that they'll submit to his will. But I don't think that's the reality of it. And the reason I believe that is, number one, and I've said this 1,000 times, when you study that word antichrist, it has absolutely nothing to do with that story, with the way that narrative works, right? The word antichrist is only used in 1st and 2nd John, those books, and it's only used 5 times, and it has specific attributes. They deny the Father and the Son. They deny that Jesus came in the flesh. They deny that Jesus is the Messiah, and they're liars and deceivers, and they come out from among the church. So that's the attributes of the spirit of Antichrist. Now, people like to take that because it's a fun word antichrists, and they like to apply it to this man of sin here. But the man of sin here goes into the temple of God. So you have this falling away, and the man of sin is revealed. We're going to come back to that revealed right here. Man of sin is revealed. Oops. The son of perdition, right? Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, right? So this sounds like Caesar, but this has been associated with this end time antichrist. And like Anthony here says, Trump is a satanic puppet, antichrist or not. I don't know if I agree with that. And this is kind of my point, is I've come to of the opinion that because this man sits in the temple of God, the temple was destroyed, right? So if we go to 1 Corinthians 3, and in verse, 16? Do you not know? Here you go. Do you not know that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him. For the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. So the temple that exists right now is us, the Christians, right? The 7 churches from the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and 3. We are the temple of God. So for a man who goes into the temple of God as God, showing himself that he is God, that would mean, that sounds like a doctrine to me. It really does. And I think it might be part of the strong delusion to where people are looking for this end time antichrist to go into a physical temple and declare himself God, but they don't realize, and this is true of the majority of Christianity, is that is a major tenet of Christianity, is to believe that a man is their God. To me, that seems delusional, because on one hand, you're looking for a man to go into the temple of God because you're of the opinion that that temple is a physical building, which I get it. And I think this might be part why God sends a strong delusion, is because Israel is talking about building a temple, right? They're raising up the heifers so that they can do the sacrifices, and yet it just keeps getting pushed and keeps getting pushed and keeps getting pushed. Maybe they will build it. My understanding is they could do it rather quickly, which with today's technology, yeah, you can build anything rather quickly. But I can't imagine. So what does it look like? I mean, I was playing with images today of what it would look like. And if you guys saw the thumbnail, there's a picture of a man sitting in a temple with a bunch of people worshiping him. What does that accomplish? I can't really see Trump doing that, but I can see these people, and this is where this division comes in. If we keep reading this, so let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless a falling away comes first. There's this division among people. You have the people who believe the propaganda, and they're so convinced of the propaganda that Trump, orange man bad, Trump bad. You combine that with this narrative of the Antichrist, and people think he's the Antichrist. I pay attention to Elon and Trump every single day. I'm constantly monitoring what they do and say, and I don't see anything that they're doing that is contrary to the word. What I don't see them also doing is I don't see them behaving in a religious manner. And I think that's one reason why people have such issue with them, is they're not up there proclaiming your religion, whatever it is that you believe, because people apparently I think they have a idea or a mentality of what they expect for these two witnesses, to who they expect them to be and how they expect them to behave. Clearly not doing that, right? They're not breathing fire, for one. But if you're paying attention to a lot of Facebook, there's a ton of hate for Trump. A lot of these legacy medias and a lot of the propaganda has fomented a lot of hate for the man. And to believe that, that is part of the separation. Those who believe that and who don't investigate further. So there's more than 7 times Jesus tells us to watch and pay attention. And as somebody who pays attention to both sides, I listen to the stuff that I can't stand and I can't stomach, and I listen to the stuff that I agree with. I can see the division, the hatred. I mean, like, have you ever tried watching The View? Just the utter poison coming out of their mouth on a daily basis for, stuff that's not even true. Oh, he's a felon. He's racist. He's none of those things. And, there's this division that's happening. So I wonder if the spirit of antichrist, a lot of people want to say the antichrist is a person. I'm wondering if it's not actually the spirit of division, if it's not more general, where there's this falling away between people. You've got the people who, they may not love the guy, but they can see that he's not this evil person that he's being made out to be. And now Elon is very quickly, pretty soon you're going to have Elon Derangement Syndrome. I mean, I think they're actually planning riots this weekend at Tesla service centers. The hatred and the torment of these two men is growing. Anyway, that's my intro. Let's handle some chat and go through some comments. Yeah, so I don't think Trump is a satanic puppet. I haven't seen any evidence of that. Yeah, here, I'll put that up. I haven't seen any evidence of that. If anything, he's the opposite of a puppet, right? He's taken bold stands. I mean, just look at what he's done. This is his second time in office, right? The first time he was a little bit too trustworthy, didn't have his bearings on how Washington, D.C. worked, and they trampled him. He had to trust people. He was in a very precarious situation. And that's how you end up with guys like Fauci in charge doing things that they shouldn't. And how, Trump did make some terrible decisions in his first time in office. But you can see that he learned from that, especially with all the attacks during the Biden administration. There was a lot of attacks, and he came through it. Like, how can none of it was true? I mean, if you actually watched the trials, all of it was disproven. The legacy media, the people who hate him, are very vocal while the lawsuits are being filed. But as soon as they get dismissed, they never publish that. That's never the front page, right? They're never saying, oh, okay, this thing we thought wasn't true. No, they just move on to the next thing that they hate about him, because there's just this deep hatred of him. And I think it's spiritual, and I think that it's part of this falling away. So I'm of the opinion that we're not actually looking for an actual man to declare himself God. What we're seeing is this spirit of Antichrist, which is causing division. And it's terrible if you're under. I think the way that you fight that spirit, if it's possible, is you focus on getting to the truth, right? You're not going to find the truth necessarily with a Facebook feed of people who hate the guy. Start looking at the opposite side of things. Find people who, a lot of people, work with him and have come out and backed him. So I don't see this satanic puppet. I don't. What I see is a man who has been attacked constantly, who is supernaturally protected, and who is winning. I mean, just think about where he is right now, right? With control over the House, the Senate, and the judiciary, right? The right has a majority. So he's able to actually, I think he's the head wounds, because, Revelation 13:1 talks about the beast from the land with 7 heads and 10 horns. And one of the heads is wounded as to death. I think that's what he's doing, because the actions that he's taking right now are causing massive damage to the deep state, to the people who are controlling these different branches, the CIA, the FBI, these organizations that are, literally named to sound like they're humanitarian organizations, USAID. Everybody, even though they know that it's USAID, they still pronounce it USAID. And that, because mentally that makes you think that it's like an organization that actually like helps people. But it doesn't. It's like this is the pocketbook for the propaganda. It's crazy. All right. Little horn papacy rose to power after the restrainer Roman emperors were removed. Let's see. Leaving 10 civil kingdoms. The Pope of Rome claimed to be over all churches and claimed to be God and set themselves. Yeah, I do agree. I agree that in the end time that we're going to see more influence from the Roman Catholic, from the Pope. As far as the little horn, though, one of the things that people don't understand is the little horn is very geographically specific, I believe, to Turkey. And it's already happened with, what was it, Antiochus? The events described in Daniel have already happened. Like, there's historical records that match the description. So at best, when you talk about the little horn, you can say that it's a mirror image. And that's where we try to get that association with, the Antichrist. And I just don't think it fits, because when you look at that word Antichrist, it's talking about a spirit. Yeah, there's one way that you can read it that kind of sounds like, there's one person coming, but at the same time, matter of fact, we could, where is that? That is, let's do a search for Antichrist. Let's see. I think if we just type Antichrist in here. Oh no, it's not Antichrist. It's yeah, it's the word Antichrist. All right. Who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist. No, it's not that one. It's the one where it says, you have heard that he is coming, and even now he is already here. Is it 1 John 2? I think it's 1 John 2. We can just start there. Got to go down a little bit further. Little children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out that they might be made manifest that none of them were of us. So one way you can read this, and this is how the narrative of this end time person is, you have heard that he's coming in the future, but that guy's not here yet. Even now are there many antichrists have come. That's not the only way you can read this. The other way you can read this is, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that Antichrist is coming, even now many antichrists have come. In other words, you heard about something that was going to happen, and even now it's already happening. And I think this goes back to John 5. Jesus warned about this. John 5, I think it's around 43. We'll just pull up the whole chapter. Go down here to 40. Let's see, this is Jesus talking. I do not receive honor from men, but I know you, that you do not have the love of God in you. And I think that's what it is. I think the people on the left are the ones who do not have the love of God in them. And the people on the right are far more loving of one another, even if they disagree. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. if another comes in his own name, him you will receive. That's, Paul has been on the program before. That's a narcissist, somebody who comes in their own name, somebody who thinks they're God, somebody who thinks that they are, above God. That's a narcissist. And Jesus warned us about that. And I think that has a lot to do with the spirit of Antichrist, because the spirit of Antichrist denies the Father and the Son, denies that Jesus is the Messiah, denies that Jesus came in the flesh. So there's a lot of levels to that. And it seems to me that kind of division that is spiritual. And I just keep thinking of this Second Thessalonians 2, this falling away in that regards. But to your point, Charles, I do believe that there is involvement. There is the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope have a lot to do in the end time events. It's often said that Rome never ceased being an empire; it was just converted into a religion. And I believe there's a lot of truth to that, because if you look at all the money that Rome had, it's sitting in the Vatican in their basement, kind of. A lot of wealth and treasures in their basement. Granted, they also have their banks, which as of 2022, I think it is, they had all their money moved to Rome. Kind of makes you wonder what they're preparing for. And even during Jesus's day and age, they were looking for a Messiah who was going to save them from Rome. So they were mistaken that's what they were under the impression that that's what he was going to do. So I think it makes more sense that Rome became a religion and turned people into narcissists, really, because, as somebody who's come out of a cult, that's the kind of behavior that you learn when you're in a cult. You're narcissists. You learn to be a narcissist because and this is not to just pick on the Roman Catholic Church. It's just, this is just religion and God worship in general, worshiping wrong gods. Because you can make a lot of things God, but you get this mentality that I'm right and everybody else is wrong, and you refuse to actually look at the evidence. And I see that spirit moving. It's almost like it's been unleashed. It's almost like Satan was cast to the earth, and there's people are infected with this mentality, right? That like they're the ones that are only right, and they refuse to look at any evidence. And when you present evidence, they turn to character assassination. They try to attack you and gaslight you and manipulate what you're saying. I think that's the division. So I wonder if that's not that spirit of Antichrist, and if that's not this falling away that's referred to in Second Thessalonians. Keep reading this, because when you read the context of it, there's some things that kind of can't be true of a man sitting in a temple. So who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things? And now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. See? I think that goes hand in hand with that spirit of Antichrist. Even now are many Antichrists among you. They came out from us. Only he who now restrains will do so until he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with his breath. So this is the context I was referring to. Whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. So this is something that should cause you to pause and wonder, how is somebody destroyed by simply words coming out of someone's mouth and somebody simply showing up? And this is where you have to separate fantasy from reality. And that's one of the things about cults, is cults push fantasy, major fantasy, which is one of the reasons why I think Jesus, when he returns, says, I never knew you, right? Scariest verse in the Bible. For many will come to me in that day saying, Lord, Lord, did we not cast out demons in your name? Did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not do many wonderful works in your name? And he will say, I never knew you. Uh, I believe that's because a lot of people are under this false religious mentality that they're performing magic tricks, right? You know, and a lot of times, well, I don't want to get too much into that, but that was my experience, right? In a cult is, I thought I was healing people and I wasn't. I thought I was teaching people the truth and I wasn't. What I was doing is I was teaching them the doctrines that I had been force fed and that I had believed. And I wasn't really free from that until I started to actually challenge and prove what I was told, like the antichrist. We're fed this narrative of the antichrist, that it's this, this world leader who's going to sit in the temple and declare himself God. Seriously, do you think you would recognize that? So if Trump right now, if there was a temple in Jerusalem and Trump went and sat there and declared himself God, number one, can you actually see him doing that? And so what? What's the next step? You think he's going to make the whole world bow to him? If not him, who? The Pope? The Pope. I could probably see the Pope doing that. Through religion, they get people. The Roman Catholic Church is guilty of getting people to worship, the fathers. They call him Father, right? Confess your sins to the Father, and they're talking about men. So I have to believe that, with what happened with Rome, it became a religion, and seeing the impact that the Roman Catholic Church has had on this world, it's a good thing that it's easy to be saved, right? Romans 10:9 and 10. It's very easy to be saved. There's not a lot required of us. Romans 10:9 and 10 says that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. And, and on top of that, the two things, in order to not be lawless, is love God and love your neighbor, right? Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. It goes back to Exodus 20. And if you want to continue obeying the law, part of that is not hating God. Do you know what it means to not hate God? So this is, we often talk about loving your neighbor as yourself, but we don't often talk about what it means to love God. This is something I was thinking about recently. Exodus 20. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to third and fourth generation of those who hate me. What's the opposite of love? Hate. So bowing down and worshiping anything on heaven, from heaven, the earth, or the sea, any carved image of something that's in heaven, the earth, or the sea, that's hating God. So in order to love God is you don't do that. You don't bow down and worship any image of, or any idolatry of anything, and of, birds, trees, whales, people. And that comes back to 2 Thessalonians, the man of sin, the son of perdition, who sits in the temple of God as God, showing himself that he is God. That lawlessness, that's a man of lawlessness, because by worshiping a man instead of God, that's hating God. At least that's what I understand from reading these things. All right. You have to hate the truth to be this deluded. Not sure what you're referring to. Themselves up in the, that's the second part of a temple of a message. Please keep my health in your prayers. Definitely, Keith. We'll definitely pray for you. All right, I'm just reading through your comments here. The little horn plucked out 3 of the ones who did not bow down to its authority. Yeah, and if you read the context, it's that's all over in the Middle East. That's not global. It's in specific areas, coming out of Persia and Media Persia, Turkey, that area. So you have to expand that into either a global thing to where now you try to overlay, a global power and some, other opposing kingdoms. I just don't see how that works. Vaccine totally pissed some demons and old programs off. Oh my goodness. Have you guys seen the Joe Rogan episode with Suzanne Humphrey? I don't know if hopefully saying her name doesn't get me banned. Hopefully you don't shut down this channel. Anyway, I won't say her name again, but that's a really good episode. And that's kind of the stuff that I see that, like with Trump and Elon Musk canceling these programs, that we're allowing them to, let me just say that it was an eye-opening episode. A lot of information about, a lot of the defenses that I use, because I haven't been against vaccines. I've actually been pretty pro-vaccine most of my life, with the exception of the mRNA technology. It was too young. It hadn't been proven. At least that's the doctrine I was pushing during the pandemic. And my reasoning for being against that is it hadn't been tested. And given the signs that we're seeing, where we were, it was nothing but bad news. Boy, oh boy. It seems like there could be even more to that, to vaccines in general. Man, that's a good episode. I think I need to be careful because I don't know what the censors are doing on YouTube in regards to that stuff right now. But I just encourage you guys to go watch that episode. It's eye-opening for sure. Fantasy is separate from physical world. Physical world is Satan's world. I don't know about you, Anthony, but I live in the physical world. So everything. So, and this comes from my experience in cults. Is the way cults work is they blind you with fantasy. And I challenge anybody who can critique your beliefs, because truth withstands scrutiny, right? And the cults get you to believe things that you cannot prove. That's the number one thing that they will use as a weapon against you, is beliefs and doctrines that you cannot prove. And it's often very fantastic. And usually somebody else has the power you don't have. Somebody else is anointed. Yeah. And I see very much like this division between left and right is very comparable to the patterns and attributes that I experienced when I was in a cult. All right. Trump is acting like the Antichrist, also acting like the false prophet. Let's talk about this. Trump is acting like the Antichrist, also acting like the false prophet. The false prophet backs up the Antichrist according to the scriptures. That's not biblical. So the word Antichrist is only used in 4 places. I don't know if you missed the first part of the show or any of my other episodes, but the Antichrist is only used in 4 places, and it's used 5 times in 4 places, and it's all in 1st and 2nd John. And it seems like it's referring to a spirit that causes people to be against the Messiah, right? So the Messiah was promised to come, and so all the way back in Genesis, right? That's Genesis 3. The promised seed of the woman is our first introduction to a coming person, right? The seed of the woman will bruise the head of the serpent, right? And then throughout the rest of the books of the Bible, there's an interesting study. If you just Google Jesus Christ, the red thread, there's a lot of studies about how Jesus is the subject of each of the books in the Old Testament. They're basically prophesying and proclaiming, this coming person who would be anointed, who would save us all. And I do believe that was Jesus. I do believe that he was that Messiah. And people like to. So I think that this spirit of antichrist, when you actually look at the word, it doesn't have any of the attributes that people use with the narrative of this end time events. With the end time events, there's a lot of assumptions that are made, and I think those assumptions, I think they're being proven wrong, because there's also a lot of assumptions about end time events that have been proven wrong. If you haven't seen my video on the timeline, the seals opening had nothing to do with what we expected them to be, right? Seal number one was, the accepted, the accepted doctrine was that it was either going to be Jesus riding on a white horse and we'd be raptured away, or it would be war, because the terminology was the rider on the white horse came conquering and to conquer, right? And then seal number two, the rider on the red horse, was given power to take peace from the earth. So, there's this idea of what we thought it was going to be like, but the reality of it is seal number one seems like it was a pandemic, right? The imagery of the rider is, wasn't a literal person, and the white probably had more to do with the medical industry and that virus going forth conquering and to conquer. So it's just like reality and I believe very strongly in separating the difference between fantasy and reality. And a lot of this is learned in hindsight as we're watchful, as we pay attention. So I don't see anything that, Trump is acting like the Antichrist. So the attributes of the Antichrist are deny the Father and the Son, deny Jesus came in the flesh, and deny that Jesus is the Messiah. Well, he outright has said that Jesus is the Messiah. There's tons of places of him saying that. He's instigated the office of faith in the government, which I think that's one of his biggest mistakes, is who he chose to lead that office. But, we're human. We make mistakes. Clearly, Trump makes mistakes. I don't think that mistakes make him the Antichrist. I think it just makes him an immature leader, which he's definitely better the second time around. And I think he's very respectful of people and what they believe. I don't see these attributes of the Antichrist that people are pushing. And I don't see him, as a false prophet either, because he's exposing truth. I mean, even in his executive actions with releasing like FBI files or the JFK files, and it's slow because they're fighting against him, but it is happening. We now have unredacted JFK files, thousands upon thousands of them. He keeps his word, and it, by all appearances, in my opinion, he's exposing fraud and abuse. I absolutely, so many of us, before Trump was in office, people had issues with the government. Clearly the government is inefficient and wasteful, and it's our taxes that make them inefficient and wasteful. So for him and Elon to be going in there and cutting these programs that people have clearly set up in order to, prop up their own personal greed, so, whatever it is they thought that these programs, they're being exposed to where they clearly were not doing what they were intended to do. I mean, the fact that there's people who are 300 years old receiving, Social Security checks is clearly a problem. So I really appreciate what's happening, with him. And here's the thing too, is every single day he's in the news. And I think that's part of, I always wondered, what the two witnesses would be doing when they would be prophesying for 1,260 days. I think the religious mentality is that they would be up there talking about God every day. They would be telling us information about God that we didn't know. That's not what the word prophecy means. Even just the dictionary definition of prophecy, if you just Google prophecy, it's speaking the truth, right? That's why you get false prophets. When you get people who lie, and especially in cults, cults push lies. They push these beliefs in order to entrap you and cause you to be afraid, to where if you don't obey them and obey the person in charge, then you're going to go to hell. They're pushing lies in order to control you. That's a prophet stands against that stuff. A prophet tells you the truth and says, I'm sorry, that's a lie. That's not true. I'm not going to hell. go F yourself. You know what I mean? I see a lot of that right now. I see a lot of them saying, the things that we've been experiencing and the lies that we've been living in, this country aren't true, and they're exposing them. So I'm not sure if you have something specific that you want to point out that he's behaving like the Antichrist, chapter and verse, or even the false prophet, by all means, please share it. Trump is a personality. He brags about himself, which is being boastful, and no one is allowed to question him. People question him all the time. Do you not watch him every single day? No matter where he's at, whether he's in the Oval Office or flying on Air Force One, people are constantly asking him questions and questioning what he's doing. And he's always, in my mind, he's always respectful and answers it, even if it's something that's questionable. Just case in point, the recent Signal leak, where they're trying to portray this leak that Pete Hegseth released top secret information. I read those texts. There was no top secret information. All that information was available after the stuff had already happened, and it wasn't anything that was top secret. So, yeah. I will give you that his personality is rough. Absolutely. And he absolutely brags, but I chalk that up to being tormenting, right? I mean, that's part of what the two witnesses do, is they torment the world. So I think their personality has a little something to do with that. People fought against Moses. You know that? If you read about Moses, people hated him. Some of them, they absolutely hated Moses. They were constantly fighting and bickering. As soon as he disappeared for too long of a time, they went back to their old religion, their old cults that, made them feel warm and toasty. And next thing you know, they're worshiping a golden calf at the bottom of a hill. So cult. So Charles, what is cult like? Cults control people, right? So typically the actual definition of a cult is usually somebody involves a person in charge, like one person that people follow, but it's actually a much broader category, and it involves also cognitive bias, I would say, to where you believe something to be true, so much so that you would defend it with your life. And the reality of it is you probably haven't actually checked it. The details, the facts. And you see that a lot with people. You see a lot of people who, they hear Whoopi Goldberg on The View say something and they take that as gospel. You get like this group think mentality where enough people, even the majority, Jesus said that broad is a path that leads to destruction. The reason I believe that is to be true, and obviously it's true, Jesus said it, but what I think he was saying is, what's that saying? A lie travels around the world 3 times before the truth has a chance to get his pants on. Is lies with the world and that mentality. People believe lies long before they believe truth. People believe fantasy long before they believe reality. And that's what cult-like is people believe their friend before they'll actually believe what they see with their own eyes. Like somebody can see something with their own eyes and someone can tell them that it's something else and they'll believe what their friend tells them. That's cult mentality. And I see a lot of that. And I think that's part of the Antichrist. I think that is just like, it's almost this spirit of opposition. And people are like that, right? You have people who will oppose anything Trump says. Trump could say, God is good, and they just oppose him just for sake of opposing him. That's why I'm thinking that, maybe the spirit of Antichrist is a broader spirit. I don't think that Trump is the Antichrist, but he is acting like the Antichrist. Yeah, I don't know what that means. What does the Antichrist act like? Jesus wants a personal relationship with us all. That's why... read this. Jesus wants a personal relationship with us all. That's why he's that, because people follow the religion. But the Lord Jesus says, follow me. That's right. And he followed the word. Jesus obeyed the scripture. You know, if you want to know what to do in life, what would Jesus do? Do what he did. Absolutely. That's the right way to live. Believe in what you can't see. Doubting Thomas. I believe in what I can't see. I've just been tricked and lied to so many times that I've learned to separate fantasy from reality. That is a common trick used in cults and by narcissists who gaslight you to get you to believe. They get you to question reality. They want you to believe what you can't see. That is a primary tactic of people who want to use you and abuse you. You know, the thing about doubting Thomas is Jesus actually showed him the wounds in his side. So it worked out well for him. Trump wants revenge on his enemies, which is antichrist. He encourages a fight in the flesh. Well, you know what? God told people to go in and kill people. So how's that bad, right? You know, we're clearly in the end times. So like Trump or hate Trump, everything that's happening is by God's design, right? It's leading to something that God is in control. So if God wants him to take revenge on his enemies, so be it. I don't see that in the evil. You know, I see him getting, you know, gang members who are murdering and raping people out of our country. You know, I hear lots and lots of reports from people who are very thankful that he's freed them to do their job, to protect people. Right? You know, when they find somebody who's a murderer, they're able to actually do something about it. Where the previous administration, they weren't. So if you have I don't have a problem with that. That's what I expect. You know, I want people who are in charge, who I'm going to pay money to. I want them to protect, you know, me, my family, my country, my state. I want them to help, you know, policies and procedures that serve God. And right now, everything I see he's doing is he's dismantling those systems. And I think of him as the beast system. I think it's absolutely what he's doing, I think, is wounding the head to death. And they're probably going to keep doing it for the next 3 years. For the rest of his administration, they're going to continue dismantling the systems that have allowed evil people to do evil things. And that would be him fighting against enemies. I think his enemy is probably my enemy. Let's see, the number of Ronald Wilson. Yeah. Hey, Joe, I believe that the great signs from heaven will take place in the city of San Luis Obispo. I've seen this comment a couple of times. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but okay. Has anyone ever done reverse psychology on Revelations yet? Oh. Let's see, what else? Probably go here for another, 10 minutes, answer some questions. So I'm going to skip through here. It's been a while since I'm still at the top of the list. See, the certain people, when Jesus came to die on the cross, they thought that the kingdom of David would be brought back. They even called him the son of David. Of course, it didn't happen. Yeah, they had a lot of assumptions about the Messiah and what would happen. Probably part of what led the Pharisees to kill him is he didn't fit their picture he didn't fit their fantasy. So that's a really good example of, you know, religious leaders who don't separate reality from fantasy. Is they had this fantasy, they had this preconceived idea of what they thought the Messiah was going to do, and he didn't fit that, so they killed him. Let's see, 1,260 days have not started, and if you are teaching that we are 67 days into it, you would be misrepresenting the texts. So I take it you haven't followed up. You're probably not aware of my timeline. What is that timeline video called? I need to just rename it timeline. Let me get the title of this for you so you can know why it is I say what I say. I have I have receipts backing up why I say this. So the name of the video is Biblical Predictions Coming True. I think that's one of them. Yeah. Biblical Predictions Coming True Right Before Our Eyes. It was from January 27th, 2025. There's another one. We want to know the hidden meaning of the 1,260 days. So I have a timeline. I've been studying this stuff my entire life, just like everybody else, but specifically since the Revelation 12 sign. So I know there's a lot of opinions on whether the book of Revelation is applicable to our day and time or not. The anchor point from September 23rd, 2017 is the basis for everything that I've worked on, right? That's how I was able to identify what I believe to be the seals opening and also where we are in the timeline. Revelations 12, 1 and 2. Let's just read this. Haven't been there in a while. 12, 1. We'll just do Revelation 12. All right. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth, right? So a sign appeared in heaven. So look up, right? That's the natural inclination. Heaven, look above you. There's star groupings which have pictures associated with them that date back for a long period of time. I don't know. I can't remember the dates off the top of my head, but for a very long time, there's been images, pictographs associated with the sections of the sky. Right. So you have the sun, moon, and stars is our calendar, our timekeeper. That's how we keep time. That's how the sun and the moon give us a 24-hour period of time, right? That's how you know if it's day or night. It's currently night where I'm at, probably night where most of you are at too. That's how you know what day it is. Today is March 28th at 8:40 p.m. Sure, we have a lot of computers and stuff that are calculating these things, but it all started with the sun, moon, and stars. So the sun and the moon move through different sections of the sky every month. The sun and the moon are in a different constellation every month. That's how you keep track of the year and the month and the seasons. All of this was set in order in Genesis 1:14 when God set the sun, moon, and stars for signs, seasons, days, and years. So in Revelation 12, when it says now a great sign appeared in heaven, we know that all of that can be used to mark dates. So this description, the woman clothed with the sun, so that I take that to mean the sun being in the constellation of Virgo, right? Because that's what it means to be clothed with the sun, is when you can't see that constellation because the sun's in it. That puts it in a specific time. The moon under her feet, that happens on a monthly basis. The moon is always it travels through the entire constellation every month. So every time the sun is in Virgo, the moon will always be in her feet. That happens every single year. Those two things are not unique. And on her head, a garland of 12 stars. So at the head of Virgo is Leo, which is made up of 9 stars. And through the course of the years, there will be, sometimes 2 planets at her head, sometimes even 3. But there's never been 3 stars in Leo with the sun in. Well, no, that's not true. So that has actually happened, where the sun has been in Virgo, the moon is at her feet, and there have been 3 stars to make up a crown, but it's always missing an element, which is being being with child. She cried out in pain to give birth. all of these elements, the only time they have all been in place is September 23rd, 2017. And I challenge anybody who questions this to prove me wrong, because this is the absolute foundation for everything that I have based my research on and observing the signs. If you can disprove that September 23rd, 2017 is this sign, then that calls into question everything else, the timing of the seals and where we are in the end time events, which calls into question that 1,260 days, right? So if you can defeat this as the Revelation 12 sign, then you can cast out in the stuff that I've done. But I submit to you that this only happens on one day. And the uniqueness of this sign is what ties the book of Revelation to our day and age. And it's the anchor point by which we can identify the signs, like when the seals are being opened, because there happens to be 4 living creatures drawing attention to celestial events. And if you watch my video, I have strong opinions about what those are, right? Pretty much the last 4 years, the Biden administration, if you want to sum it up. That's been the opening of the 4 seals. All of those signs happened during the Biden administration. But there's variations of this sign. For instance, there's one in 1800s, there's one in the 1400s, there's one in 3 BC, to where it will have elements of this sign, but not all parts of this sign. And I think that's what makes this unique, is the clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, the crown of 12 stars, and pain to be delivered. And the real kicker is it's Jupiter, which is the king planet, right? That's the planet that's often associated with the Messiah, with Jesus. So you've got Jupiter in retrograde in Virgo on September 23rd, 2017. So all of those elements come together, which have given an anchor point by which we can do day counts and look for signs. And that's what led me to the conclusion of we have to start that 1,260 days by 2025, because we're getting so far away from that Revelation 12 sign that we don't have time for the 1,260 days and the 1,290 days, the 1335 and the all the number counts. God gives us those day counts for a reason. So I don't agree with you that we haven't started the 1,260 days. And that's why I have stuck my stake in the ground, because right now, given where we are in the timeline, there's nobody in Jerusalem right now breathing fire. And there's nobody who has more of a world stage than Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And they are tormenting the world. So there's a lot of attributes about those guys. So I've stuck my stake in the ground. I've started the countdown from January 20th. And I'll be the first one to admit I'm wrong if 2 guys show up who are the 2 witnesses. I'll be doing a show the second it happens, no matter where I am or what I'm doing. If I'm in my car driving, I'll get on my phone. If there's 2 guys breathing fire, if Elijah and Moses show up in Jerusalem and start burning people down who try to kill them, I'll be the first one to get on the show telling you, hey guys, I was wrong. They're in Jerusalem. But I don't think that's going to happen, because I think that a lot of that imagery is metaphorical. And what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing is I could totally see them fitting everything happening, with what's prescribed about the 2 witnesses. I could totally see them continuing to torment the world to the point that in 3.5 years, less than that now, 3.25 years, a quarter of a year, them rising up and unaliving them. All right, guys. Well, let's see if I'll go scan through here, see if there's anything else that stands out to me. There are specific prophecies. We'll just go down to the bottom. Oh, wow. Actually got pretty far tonight. The heavens declare the story every day, every night. That's right. Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech. Night unto night showeth knowledge. That's right. Psalm 19. All right, guys. Well, that's all I had. I just wanted to get on here and talk about the antichrists and, wanted to go on here tonight and talk about the antichrist and Trump Derangement Syndrome. And I'm wondering if what we're seeing, this spirit of division, isn't what, let's end out here. Reiterate this, 2 Thessalonians. There you go. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first. And I think that's what's happening. I wonder if that's not what we're seeing, if we're not seeing that division, because it's a stark division right now, you know. Brother is against brother. What is it in Matthew 24 that it says basically your house is going to be divided? Brother against brother, friend against friends. You know, there's a big division right now. I was just watching a father and son trying to figure out how to make amends with one another because they've been at odds with each other for so long that they're tired of it. Anyway, all of this, and I think we're all in agreement on that. I don't expect people to agree with, you know, what I'm saying. I realize that it is bizarre, but I'm calling it as I see it, and somebody's got to put their stake in the grounds. You know, you'll either see a video of me coming out admitting I'm wrong, or, you know, as we get further in, people are going to be going, how the hell did he know these things? It's because I have to make a decision. You've got to make a decision when you see these things. And the whole point of being watchful is paying attention. And the data, go watch that video. The data suggests that we're in that window. The data suggests that the 1,260 days has started. I know that there's people looking in April for the two witnesses to be revealed in Jerusalem. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm excited to pay attention if it does, because I really want to see people breathing fire. I mean, that would be cool, but that's one of those things that's a fantasy. That makes me think it's a figure of speech, because people don't naturally breathe fire. Sure, you have circus performers who can spit out alcohol, but that's not really the same thing that's written about in the book of Revelation. The implication is that, you know, whatever comes out of their mouth is dangerous. And I would say that what's coming out of Donald Trump and Elon Musk's mouth right now is dangerous. You know, they're cutting jobs, they're cutting waste, they're exposing fraud, and, you know, they're trying to bring peace by all appearances, and they're trying to set things in order. To me, it looks like they're preparing for the Lord to return. That's what it looks like to me. And with that, I'll let you guys go. God bless you, and shalom, shalom.